You have met the child within you. You have recognized their wound. Now comes the most important question of all. How do you heal them? What if the key wasn't in analyzing the past, but in actively changing your relationship with that past in the present? Here is a truth that might be hard to swallow. Healing your childhood wounds has very little to do with your actual parents. Blaming them or even forgiving them is not the most potent step. The most radical and effective path to healing is to realize that the only parent who can give your inner child what it truly needs now is you. This is not a metaphor. It is a practical, psychological skill set that can break lifelong patterns of pain. This is the art of reparenting. In this deeply practical episode of our journey with Carl Jung's wisdom, we move from recognition to the active work of healing. This is an essential part of shadow work, learning to embrace and care for the vulnerable, exiled parts of yourself. This video is an invitation to stop waiting for an apology or for the past to change. An invitation to understand why your inner critic is often just the echo of an old parenting style. And an invitation to learn the exact compassionate tools you need to finally become your own sanctuary. This is where the real work of homecoming begins. For so many of us, the moment after recognition is the most dangerous. You have seen the child. You have felt that surge of compassion, that heartbreak, and for a moment, there is a profound stillness, a clarity. But then, the world rushes back in, and the old familiar voice returns. The drill sergeant, the inner critic, the voice that says, "Okay, you've seen the problem, now fix it. Stop being so sensitive, just grow up already." And in that moment, the healing stops, and the war begins again. This is the great tragic misunderstanding about healing the inner child. We discover this wounded, vulnerable part of ourselves, and our first instinct, conditioned by a lifetime of achievement-based thinking, is to treat it like a failing project, a flaw in the system to be managed, a bug to be eliminated. We apply the logic of the boardroom to the landscape of the soul, and we wonder why it never ever works. Let me tell you about Sarah, a 48-year-old corporate lawyer I worked with. On the outside, she was the epitome of success, sharp, respected, seemingly unbreakable. Her persona was ironclad. But she came to me because she was suffering from crippling anxiety and what she called imposter syndrome. After some deep shadow work, she connected with her inner child, a quiet, anxious 8-year-old girl who was terrified of making mistakes because her father, a demanding academic, treated anything less than an A+ as a catastrophic failure. Sarah had the breakthrough. She saw the child, she wept for her. Then she went back to work. A week later, she made a minor mistake, an overlooked clause in a contract. No one else even noticed it. But inside Sarah's mind, the drill sergeant took over. "Stupid," it screamed. "Incompetent. How could you miss that? You are a fraud." She spent the rest of the day in a spiral of shame and self-loathing. When we spoke next, she was defeated. "I don't get it," she said. "I saw the child, I felt the compassion. Why am I still doing this to myself?" And this is the question we must answer. The voice that Sarah heard, the drill sergeant, was not her voice. It was the echo of her father. She was treating her 8-year-old inner self in exactly the same way her father had. She had internalized the critic. She had become her own abuser. This is the absolute core of the problem. The strategy you are using to fix yourself is very often a perfect replica of the strategy that wounded you in the first place. You cannot heal a wound with the very tool that created it. You cannot berate yourself into a state of peace. You cannot shame yourself into a state of worthiness. You cannot abandon yourself into a state of belonging. It is a logical and spiritual impossibility. This is the collapse of the achievement-based model applied to your inner world. The belief that if you just try hard enough, if you are just disciplined enough, if you just eliminate all your negative feelings, you will achieve healing. You will achieve wholeness. But the soul is not a corporation. It is a garden. It does not respond to spreadsheets and performance reviews. It responds to sunlight, to water, to patient, loving attention. Pause for a moment and listen. What is the tone of the voice you use with yourself when you are in pain? Is it gentle? Curious? Compassionate? Or is it harsh, impatient, demanding? For most of us, it is the latter. We think this harshness is a form of tough love that will motivate us, but it is not. It is simply re-traumatization. Every time you tell your anxious inner child to get over it, you are re-inflicting the original wound of rejection. Every time you call yourself stupid for making a mistake, you are re-inflicting the original wound of humiliation. It is a war of attrition waged against your own heart, a battle where every victory is also a loss, because the battlefield is you. The exhaustion you feel is the exhaustion of a soldier in a civil war that has no end. The truth is, the inner child doesn't need a manager. It doesn't need a critic. It doesn't need you to fix it. It needs what any child needs. It needs a parent, a good parent, a wise and loving parent. And the great liberating secret of the second half of life is that this parent does not exist in your past. This parent is waiting to be born inside of you. But this shift requires a profound reframing. It requires us to move beyond the question of blame and into the realm of radical responsibility. It asks us to stop seeing our inner world as a report card of successes and failures, and start seeing it as a living, breathing ecosystem that needs our care. It is a shift from fixing to feeling, from managing to mothering.
So the war is over. The drill sergeant has been unmasked as an echo, not a truth. What comes next is not another battle plan. It is a homecoming. The art of healing your inner child begins with a single, radical, and profoundly liberating decision. The decision to stop blaming and start taking responsibility. Now, I know that word, responsibility, can feel heavy, like another burden to carry. But this is a different kind of responsibility. It is not the responsibility for what happened to you as a child. That was never your fault. It is the radical responsibility for your own inner world now. Reparenting is not about excavating the past to find someone to blame. That is a trap that keeps us chained to resentment. It acknowledges that perhaps our parents did the best they could with the tools and the wounds they themselves had. Reparenting is not about changing the past. It is about deciding that you, the adult you are today, will finally give your inner child what it has always been waiting for. It is the ultimate act of reclaiming your power. Let me tell you about David, a 52-year-old architect, a good man. He grew up in a home that was not abusive, but was emotionally barren, a desert of feeling. His successes were expected. His sadness was an inconvenience. His fears were dismissed. He learned as a child that his inner world did not matter. So, he built a wall around it. As an adult, David was successful, but he felt a profound emptiness, a disconnect from his wife, his children, and himself. When life got hard, when he felt fear or sadness, his automatic reaction was to shut down, to retreat, to tell himself to be logical. He was treating his own heart with the same dismissal he had received as a child. His breakthrough was not a moment of anger at his parents. It was a moment of profound, heartbreaking compassion for himself. He realized he wasn't emotionally unavailable. He was simply reenacting the only parenting model he had ever known. He was abandoning himself, just as he had been abandoned. So, how do we break this cycle? How do we learn a new way of inner parenting? The answer lies in activating a part of you that has always been there, waiting patiently beneath the noise of the inner critic. In Jungian psychology, we call this the archetype of the wise adult, or the good parent. This is not a fantasy. It is a real, accessible part of your psyche. It is the quiet, calm center of the storm. It is the part of you that knows how to take a deep breath, the part that can feel compassion for a struggling animal or a crying child in a movie. It is the part of you that is reading these words right now, seeking with a quiet sincerity to find a better way. That is the wise adult. And the work of reparenting is the work of consciously strengthening and embodying this archetype. Its voice is not loud, it does not shout, it whispers. And it offers the two things a wounded child needs more than anything else in the universe. First, a sense of safety. The wise adult's primary message is, I am here, I will not abandon you. Whatever you are feeling, we will feel it together. You are not alone in this. For a child who is left to navigate their fear or sadness alone, this is a revolutionary act of love. Second, a feeling of being seen. The wise adult offers validation. Its message is, your feelings are valid. They make sense. It is okay to be angry. It is okay to be scared. You are not too sensitive. You are human. For a child who was told their feelings were wrong or inconvenient, this is like being given water in a desert. Let's pause here. I invite you to a small act of imagination. If this wise adult within you had a voice, what would it sound like? Is it warm? Is it calm? Is it deep? Share one word in the comments that describes this voice. By simply naming it, you are beginning to call it forward. This wise adult is not a perfect all-knowing guru. It is simply the part of you that chooses compassion over criticism. It chooses presence over dismissal. It chooses connection over abandonment. Every time you make that choice, you are reparenting. You are healing. The most profound part of this work is that you stop unconsciously looking for this good parent in the outside world. You stop hoping your partner will finally understand and heal you. You stop hoping your boss will finally validate your worth. You stop waiting for an apology that may never come. Because you are no longer an orphan. You are becoming your own home. You are becoming your own sanctuary. This wise adult is not a fantasy. It is your birthright, your most sacred inheritance. But knowing it exists is not enough. We must learn how to call upon it in moments of crisis. We must learn its language, the language of healing. And that language is simpler and more powerful than you can imagine.
So we have met the inner parent, the wise adult, the calm, compassionate center that exists within you. But how do we teach this parent to speak, especially in moments of crisis, when the small, scared child has taken over the controls? The language of healing is not complex. It is simple. It is direct, and it is built upon 3 foundational pillars. These are not abstract ideas. These are practical, in-the-moment tools for your inner first aid kit. They are the words your inner child has been waiting a lifetime to hear. The first pillar is validation. Validation is the simple, radical act of seeing and naming the feeling without judgment. It is the opposite of dismissal. It says, your feelings are real, and they make sense. Think of Sarah, the lawyer, spiraling in shame after her minor mistake. The drill sergeant screamed, "You are stupid." The wise adult, practicing validation, would put her hand on her own heart and whisper internally, "I see you are terrified right now. It is okay to feel this way. This feels exactly like when you disappointed your father. Of course you were scared." Do you feel the difference? The criticism adds fuel to the fire. The validation offers a cool drink of water. It does not deny the feeling. It does not try to fix it. It simply says, "I am with you in this feeling." The second pillar is reassurance. This is the crucial next step. While validation honors the feeling of the child, reassurance anchors the child in the reality of the adult. It is the wise adult calmly taking the steering wheel. Its message is, "I know this feels dangerous, but we are safe now. I am in charge." After validating Sarah's fear, her wise adult would continue, "I know this feels just like when you are 8 years old, but we are not 8 anymore. I am 48. I am a capable adult. I can handle this small mistake. I will keep us safe." This single act separates the past from the present. It acknowledges the echo of the old trauma while firmly planting your feet in the safety of your adult reality. It tells the inner child, "You don't have to be in charge anymore. I've got this." And the third pillar is nurturance. This is the act of tending to the child's legitimate needs in healthy adult ways. After validation and reassurance, the wise adult asks a simple, gentle question. Not, "How do we solve this global problem?" but, "What do you need right now to feel just 5% better?" The answer is often surprisingly simple. A glass of water, 5 minutes of quiet away from the desk, listening to a comforting song, a walk around the block. Then the adult self provides it. This is not indulgence. It is essential maintenance. It is the act of teaching your entire nervous system through action that its needs matter and will be met. These 3 pillars, validation, reassurance, and nurturance, form the core practice of in-the-moment reparenting. But there is a deeper practice, a way to heal the old wounds at their very root. This is the practice of the healing letter. In a quiet moment, take out your journal. This is a sacred dialogue. The wise adult writes a compassionate letter to the inner child, offering the specific validation, reassurance, and love it needed to hear back then, but never did. You might write to your younger self, "Dear 8-year-old me, I am so sorry no one saw how scared you were. You were not being too sensitive. You were a child in a difficult situation, and you did the best you could. I see your fear, and I love you, not in spite of it, but with it. You did not have to be perfect to be loved. You were, and are, loved simply for being you." Writing these words, speaking these truths, is a profound act of psychological alchemy.
It is a way of going back in time, not to change the events, but to change their meaning, to offer a new voice, a new ending to the old story. It is a core part of the shadow work we are doing, bringing the light of adult consciousness to the abandoned, shadowy parts of our own history. The fruits of this practice are life-altering. Emotional resilience grows. You get triggered less often, and when you do, you recover much faster because your wise adult is online. Your relationships become healthier. You stop unconsciously expecting your partner or your friends to fill the role of your missing parent, and your self-esteem becomes authentic. It is no longer a fragile thing dependent on external validation, but a solid, quiet core of self-worth, built from the inside out. You finally feel at home in your own skin. And when the inner house grows quiet, when the child finally feels safe, you begin to hear whispers from an even deeper place, a place that does not speak in the language of trauma or fear, but in a language of symbols, of metaphors, of mystery, a language that comes to you in the night.
So we arrive, not at a final destination, but at a new beginning, a new relationship with the most vulnerable part of yourself. The inner house is no longer a battlefield. It is becoming a home. The work of reparenting is not a task to be completed. It is a practice to be lived. A quiet daily returning to the wellspring of your own compassion. There will be days you forget, days the old drill sergeant returns and shouts. And on those days, the practice is not to fight back. The practice is to notice, to take a breath, and to offer yourself the very validation you needed in that moment. The practice is to begin again. This is the essence of the work. It is not about perfection. It has never been about perfection. It is about presence. The consistent, loving presence of your own wise adult. And the fruits of this quiet, persistent practice are profound. It is the source of true emotional resilience. The storms of life will still come, but you will have an anchor. You will have a harbor within yourself. You get triggered less, and when you do, you know how to navigate the waves instead of being drowned by them. It is the foundation of healthier relationships. When you stop unconsciously looking for a parent in your partner, you can finally see them as a person. Love ceases to be a desperate search for safety and becomes a conscious choice for connection. You are no longer a half, searching for another half. You are a whole, meeting another whole. And finally, it is the birth of authentic self-esteem, a quiet, unshakable knowing of your own worth that is not dependent on your achievements, your productivity, or anyone else's approval. It is a worth that is inherent, a worth that simply is. You stop searching for a home in the eyes of others because you have finally become one. This is the ultimate act of power that this inner work offers. The journey of shadow work, as Carl Jung understood it, is not about eliminating the darkness. It is about bringing the abandoned parts of ourselves back into the light of our own love. The inner child is perhaps the most precious of these exiled parts, and welcoming it home changes everything. So tonight, I invite you to a small, sacred ceremony. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Tonight, before you go to sleep, take 60 seconds. Close your eyes. Place a hand on your heart. Feel its warmth. Feel its gentle pressure. And simply say to the child within you, the child who may be scared or lonely or tired, say these words: "You are safe. I love you. Get some rest." That's it. This small act, this simple blessing, is the seed of a profound transformation. It is the first step on the path of becoming your own sanctuary. The work is not out there. The work is right here. And when the inner house grows quiet, when the child finally feels safe and heard, something miraculous happens. You begin to hear whispers from an even deeper place, a place that does not speak in the language of trauma or fear, but in a language of symbols, of metaphors, of mystery, a language that comes to you in the night, offering guidance from the very center of your soul. In our next journey together, we will become interpreters of these nightly messages. We will learn the secret language of your dreams.